Yes, hello, my dear Raeline Brady. So honored to have you here. So honored to finally meet you. Delighted for this time together and so excited for what you are going to share with us. Thank you for being here. For the ones watching this, Raeline Brady is a wonderful, wonderful human in tune with Earth, in tune with um, the energies in tune with her own mission, and I call you an extraordinary being and a galactic weaver. I know you connected to so many things and assisting planet Earth in this evolutionary cycle. So super excited to listen to you and to, yes, as you say, to weave this conversation together. So thank you for being here. Welcome, Raeline.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here and welcome everyone else who's going to listen to this conversation at a later time. It's so wonderful for us to all connect in together around the world, as we were just discussing, and so many more coming on board now, which I'm delighted about.
Yes, yes. I was just reminded this morning about the Hopi, I think they call it the Hopi prophecy that
Mm,
was
mm,
said by Hopi elders, that there is a
yes,
river and it's now moving very fast, and look around and see who is there with you and celebrate, because the time of the lone
true.
wolf is over. And I think so many of us felt that, right? That we were
Absolutely.
that we were in so many locations, and yet yeah, and yet it felt at times where we were the only ones there, knowing something that was really unknowable. Like, you were the same, being called to locations and all of a sudden doing something or speaking something, and it's like, wow. And then returning to your home location thinking, what was that about? And then
Yeah,
years later.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, that sort of thing was happening even when I was a little girl, but I didn't have the reference points or the guidance. I had family that were open psychically and intuitively, but not in that capacity, where they were consciously recognizing places that they'd never been before, when we were off on family camping trips in nature and things like that that were very significant to me later in life. And just, going off, I went for a 6-week holiday to India on pilgrimage and didn't come back for 15 years. And so that was a real journey, and guided to leave. Just suddenly, I was told to, I was living up in the sacred mountain in Australia that catches the first sunlight for the entire continent, and in the rainforest in a little bus converted. And I was told to I had Ganges water, and I was told to place it in as many of the places that I had opened up around that sacred mountain, which were many. But as soon as I did that, I got called to be on the banks of the Ganges River. And I was just going there for a festival. And I awoke the night before I was leaving, and I was told, "You're not going anywhere. You're staying." And it was so compelling that instead of going to the airport that morning, I went to the Thai Airways office, and they said, "Well, this is a very, basic fare, and I don't think you're going to be able to get an extension for the 3 months that I wanted." Anyway, I was ready to forfeit it. It was so compelling, and anyway, they said, "We'll fax you." In those days, it was faxes. It was before mobile and that sort of thing. So they faxed me about 2 weeks later and said, "We regret to inform you we can't extend for 3 months. We can only extend for 1 year." So that was it. I ended up staying in India. And as I was driving back, I was living in an ashram, and my friend's husband said, "We need to, give you a good service in the temple, because we don't want people putting you on the witch hunt with just doing Reiki and healing and all that. So a bona fide service. We've been meaning to get it started for 6 months now, and it was taking pilgrims through sacred mantras, flower offerings, Pushpanjali, to the goddess of the Ganges River, and it was a whole temple complex set up for that. So I was taking groups of like up to 1,000 people a day.
Wow.
Yeah, through that, and
Wow.
that's where I got to live. And she called me, and then when it was time to go, she said, "Now flood the earth with liquid love of Godhood," which is what she's known as,
Oh, wow. Wow.
liquid
Thank
love
you
of
so
Godhead. So
much.
yeah, so that started the journey, and then I started co-creating with nature and dimensional beings, quintessences, and that's my SQS, Soul
Oh,
Quintessence
yes.
System. So
Okay.
that was like essences that I co-created with nature in all over the world, and that journey was 15 years until I arrived. I got the call to go back, and people said, "Oh, did you miss your family?" It was like, no, no, the whales called me back. There's Oceanic song lines in Australia that I've been called back to work with after 15 years. And so, yeah, that was part of the journey. But yeah, I'm traveling. This year's been really full on with the travel, more than quite a few years. But it's so wonderful to have so many people coming on board now. As you say, I've been involved consciously with this since 1991. So it's my 34th year of Earth service, working with
Mm,
the grids, starting locally and then,
thank you.
nationally, and then all around the world with this. So it's so wonderful to see so many people now working in this capacity. And in those days it wasn't so commonly known, and to talk about the star song lines and how they mirror the earth grids. And but that was all coming through way back then for me, in the early 90s. And light language, I mean, 30 odd years ago, to speak light language was not heard of either. And I started just working with clients with healing and teaching, and it just started flooding out of me. And then when I was, doing the earth work, this was flooding out of me, and it was part of the anchoring for the star grids. And so it's so nice now to just see not just people knowing what you're talking about, but so many now also, working in this capacity. And it's beautiful. It's really something else.
Yes. I love hearing your story. Thank you for sharing. I wanted to ask you about the oceanic song lines, as you call them, because I was also being told of the rivers, which are in Earth rivers, but also ocean rivers, like
Yes.
currents through the oceans.
Yes. And the aquifers in under.
Yes, yes,
A lot of the ancient sites have this direct connection to our inner ocean. You see, there's more water on the interior of the planet, which I didn't know. I found that out many, many years ago whilst visiting Tani Mahuta, which is a very sacred forest in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And there's a beautiful story of this big kauri tree, Tani Mahuta, and its connection with the whale. And I got pulled in underneath that, and I didn't know that connection or that story, that they share the same skin. The bark is very similar to whale skin. And the whale's like, come be with me in the ocean, brother. And but I'm a tree. And so they did the swapping of the skin. So it's a very beautiful and very sweet story. And so that ocean underneath regulates all the oceans on the surface. And there are places around, like when I go, for example, on the Giza Plateau, for me, it's connecting in to that. And a lot of the sites there connect in with the inner ocean, and, you know, the aquifers connect in. And then I think it was mid 2000s, they have confirmed scientifically, not that we need that confirmation ourselves, but, you know, it's interesting that they're recognizing the inner oceans and how they regulate all the oceans on the surface of our planet. So the information coming through for me was, or is, that the solar flaring that we're receiving is directly influencing the hydroplasma of all the oceans. And this is like a way for we can step down the energetics of these massive solar flows that we're just getting bombarded with now. And what is it? It's in direct connection with our nervous system, which the oceans and water memory field helps us to stabilize our nervous system.
Yeah.
And what is our nervous system? It's our consciousness.
Yeah.
And so the solar flaring is a direct response to us coming online with our consciousness and our galactic brain. What I call going live at the crystal palace, which is all our higher gland centers coming online. And so what happens is that the solar flaring and the plasma of the photonic light and the solar flaring creates this, it transduces through our oceans as hydroplasma. And then the whales traversing our oceans, they transduce that at a level that we can assimilate and absorb. And so each year when the whales sing their song lines, and it is a different song every year, only the males, and they're singing that song, what they're doing is they're bringing through the new energetics to help us to step up and to assimilate and absorb these incredible whole, you know, solar flaring that's happening. And so there are oceanic grids. And this opened up for me when the tsunami hit in 2004, the first big tsunami. I was laid out in bed for a month, my hands and my feet on fire, with just download after download after download coming through me. And I was shown that in the oceans was the A grid, the primary grid. And so on the surface Earth is the B grid, or the secondary grid. And that there were 12 dolphin dreaming temples that were originally, we were stewards of. And when the fallen consciousness happened, it went to the cetaceans, the whales, and the dolphins, particularly from Sirius. And so they have been guarding those temples in the ocean ever since that great fall of Atlantis, the last major fall in consciousness. And so they were all being activated through this tsunami in 2004. And I was shown all these temples within the ocean lighting up. And so I love to swim and I love being in the water, but I had this fear to put my head underwater. So I had to clear the catastrophobia, which is the cellular memory when we all reach a certain frequency level, the vibration that goes, oh, last time I hit this level, something not so good happened to me. You know, the inundations, the earthquakes, the tsunamis. So it's that catastrophobia now that we're all healing to be able to regulate our energy field to move beyond into this new frequency band that we're all doing what has never been done before in Hyperborea or Lemuria or Atlantean times. And there's also something that I'm tuning into lately with the tectonic plates, which is to do with a pre-Lemurian and I have the consciousness of it, but not the name. And so that's all coming up for as well now. And so when we hit that resonance again, we're doing what's never been done in these bodies. And so it's really spectacular. So I had to learn to scuba dive, to go down and work with the oceanic grids. And sometimes these oceanic grids, the vortex was warped. So I had to sit on the bottom and work with the warping until it came back into alignment. And it was spiralic again, moving in a spiral. And I give the analogy of when you don't screw the lid of a jar on properly, it doesn't fit into the grooves of the lid. And so I had to sit there and work with the vortex and bring it back into its original spin. And these are part of what's called the originator gates.
Wow. Okay. That makes
And
so much sense.
yeah, and it was not pleasant because I was getting very nauseous and I had to purge in my regulator, often sitting on the bottom with, quite strong currents. And sometimes at nighttime, like when I opened up the one in Kona, it was at nighttime with the manta rays. And I was quite ill doing that one,
Wow.
quite a big purge. And another one in the Galapagos Islands, that was quite a purge as well. But the manta rays were coming over me, and there was one, and she was really big, 15-year-old, heavily pregnant, and they called her Big Bertha. And she was like almost touching my nose, and she came over me maybe 7 or 8 times. And she has a very unique marking, which was a trident on her belly.
Oh, wow.
And all these markings that look like a constellation.
Wow.
And so I was there sitting on the bottom, and all the currents were going around, and there were all these like sea urchins with spiny prickles around me. And all I had was this torch and this light that was there underneath and under the sea. And I was waiting for a message from her. And in her wisdom, she said to me, very practically as a mama, don't eat garlic before you dive. So she was saying that was making me feel even more nauseous with all the rocking and rolling on the bottom.
Amazing. Just amazing. Wow. Mantas are such intelligent beings. Never
Yeah.
mind consciousness. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, the mantas are incredible, and their energy, their vibration is so refined. As are stingrays, by the way. I have very close connection with stingrays. And the rays, my name's Ray, everybody calls me Ray, but the rays are really, really fine in vibration. They're actually much finer in vibration than the dolphins and the whales,
Wow.
interestingly. Well, for me at least, from my
And they
experience of
and they
them.
carry electricity too, right? Like they can
Well,
sting electrical
that's what
current.
that's what I was about to say, actually, because recently I went to this place. Um, it's an island off of Bali and Java called Nusa Penida, and there's a place there called Manta Point. So I was working with the mantas there a few months ago, and well, actually, it's a year ago. And when I came out of the water, we went off to another place, and I didn't notice it. But when we went into a new place, my friends that I was snorkeling with, they said, Ray, your whole skin on your body is bioluminescent, like a few millimeters above the skin. And some of the others had it too, but not the whole body. But my whole body was this whole thin layer of electric blue,
Wow.
bioluminescence all around. And it was from them,
Wow.
which blew my mind because I'd never had that or never noticed that before swimming with mantas. So that was something like felt new with the plasma in the waters, that they were, I'm working with a thing now with the waters called plasma pillars, plasma pools, plasma portals, and plasma pearls. And it is part of this bioluminescence. And this has been coming online really strongly now. And I don't know anybody working with this on the planet, but it's something really like in the oceans with the bioluminescence that comes from actually activating these four aspects of plasma and then connecting it through the hydroplasma in the oceans. So, yeah, this is very exciting. And, yeah, I'm going to be working with this more and more. I've started working with it. We were working with it at Blue Lagoon in Malta recently, and I'm actually bringing a group to Bali in a few weeks. So I'll be taking them again to work with the waters there, the plasma field.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have the same sense, the same information, different words, but it began with me seeing for many, many months. My consciousness was above something that I ended up calling the plasma lake. And then the plasma lake guiding me to all of this other intelligence that is plasma and bioplasma, as you say, and hydroplasma and our physical body too, our upgrade into, as you call it, bioluminescence. I wanted to bring back that because you were speaking about the blue light as well. I wanted to bring back that experience that we both had, although we weren't together. We had a similar experience on Bige Island in Aswan, and I
Yes.
think we started speaking about or to each other around that time. Um, you were sharing with me that the energy was so strong. You felt. Can't remember if you said you saw blue light for days.
Yes. Yes, I did. The electric blue stayed with me, and I had to just go down the stairs and get in the water there, fully clothed. And this light language poured through me, and it was so incredible because I couldn't stop it, and the group were there, but we had four native men, native Nubian, and two from Luxor with me, and they were just so supportive. These men were so respectful and so supportive of what was just pouring through me for the longest time and wouldn't stop. And then one of the men took a photo of me, and I've got these ginormous golden gossamer wings coming down, and there's this whole electric blue, which I can share later in the comments,
Mm.
the photo. But this also happened years ago when I was at Sacred Lake in Dendera, at Hathor's temple, where I went down into the lake and all this rainbow colors were coming up, orbs. And then the temple guardian said, "Come with me." And he took me down in through the tunnel underneath the sacred lake where the actual well is.
Yes.
But when we were in there was all these cobalt blue energy. And then when we were taking photos in the temples, it was all showing up in the temples, all these in the rooms, all this cobalt blue energy. So yeah, and I'd forgotten about that one, because that was quite a few years earlier. But it was undamming because though those waters, those sweet waters, had been disconnected between Abydos, Assyrian, and the well and the sacred lake at Hathor's temple in Dendera. They were disconnected through, the damming of the Nile.
Oh,
And so I collected the waters from that well at Dendera, and then I took them down to the waters of the Assyrian. And when I put the waters and I mixed them together and I poured that water into the waters of the Assyrian, the whole energy started to whirlpool really quickly, and bubbles were coming up.
Wow.
And then the whole, because it's for those that don't know, it's a whole long oblong. And then the whole thing started to do this big wave like this. And then I could see all the stones were showing all musical notes. Each stone had a certain note,
So
musical note.
the
So
pillars, the pillars were notes.
each square
Wow.
block had different, and they were like, one I was shown was the keystone for the octaves of the water, to octavate, spiraling, octave, going up in the
Amazing.
frequency. But yeah, and there are the three waters. We have the sweet water, which is, as you're talking about, the lakes and the rivers, which you feel very connected to. And then we have the salt water. And then we have sky water, which is the water that comes down and connects in with these places through the celestial rivers, such as the Milky Way galaxy. And there are convergent points with sacred rivers around the planet. For example, the Ganges has a convergence point with the Milky Way galaxy as a celestial to terrestrial current that flows between the two. And the Boyne, the sacred river
Ireland.
in Ireland at Newgrange, it too has a connection to the Milky Way galaxy and to Deneb as a starry confluence. And of course, the Nile has this terrestrial to celestial currency. And then we have the fourth water, and that is us, clever water, which is the one who can alchemize those three waters inside themselves. And so this is where, my work has taken me over the last few decades. And I'm just loving that everybody's really going to the waters and speaking with the waters and singing to the waters and exchanging codes with the waters. I always say to people, download your codes in nature. Don't go to a toilet where, if you can go in nature, go in nature. Go behind a bush if it's, there's
Yes,
people around. Be discreet. You'll be surprised how you can just not be seen exchanging your codes with nature. And this is
absolutely.
how we expand, and we can get our DNA exchanging with nature, that nature can go, okay, I know what level your consciousness is, and now I know on what level to meet you at with information and exchanging frequencies. And so
Yeah.
this is a very simple way just to exchange frequencies with nature through water.
Yes. Yes. Eagle, Chief Golden Light Eagle, the late Chief Golden Light Eagle used to tell us that to go in nature, exactly what you said, because we would exchange and then collaborate with Earth because they would know what was our consciousness, but also the stars would also receive our consciousness or a level of consciousness. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Because a lot of places in nature, sometimes we feel like we're communicating with, a grove of trees, like an oak grove, or we might feel like we're communicating with a circle of rocks, stone circles. But sometimes that is the way for star beings, when we are still adjusting our frequencies in the beginning times, when we're adjusting our star connections, they will come through to us through the stone circles, through the tree groves. That's a way for them, and you feel like you're actually communicating with a council of trees, but you're actually communicating or communing with a council of star elders that are stepping down their frequencies in a way that we can assimilate and absorb and receive the information in a way that we can best understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to ask you more about the rivers because we've been called to go to Turkey to the source of the river Tigris, and we can't quite access the Euphrates because it's up in the mountains and
Yes.
in well, Armenia and so on, but we can get to the confluence of the Euphrates. But the Tigris exits through the Taurus Mountains in a cave. And we felt very strongly to go there. Do you know anything anything you want to share about that?
I've not been there, but I do know that confluences are vortexes or vortices, and not all vortices or vortexes are portals, but all portals are vortices. And I know that those two rivers, those two primordial rivers, and their flow coming out of the crystal core of the earth,
Yeah.
that they don't start there. And there are a lot of rivers on the planet that do that. And they meet on certain levels in the intraterrestrial realms of our earth, as well as confluences, not just on the surface. And so there's that aspect. But I would also like to say where river mouths or sources come out from, this is very, very important. And also the deltas, where they flow into the ocean. This is a lot of my work has worked with the rivers, particularly in Ireland. I was called to live in Ireland for a long time. And so, the source of these rivers are very potent, and they're actual doorways, dimensional doorways. And so, yeah, I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you go there.
Thank you. Yes,
If
I
you're,
also.
if you're feeling if you're feeling guided, go there
Yeah,
for sure.
through research, I wasn't really aware. I had the awareness, but I didn't know that this was also ancient Sumerian writings and myths about the inner earth waters. And the whole story of the inner earth wisdom was written in ancient Sumerian times.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that is what we're talking about. We're going back to again as an originator gate.
Yeah.
And some of these, these originator gates, they're there in their purity. It's up to us to gain access to the purity.
I
What that
agree.
means is, yes, certain dimensional levels have been tampered with, but if you go in there with your coding, your originator coding, and you go there through TrueSelf and Source coding, then that's what you'll get. Otherwise, yeah, you can easily get stuck on, inner terrestrial realms. There's hellish and heavenly places within our inner terrestrial realms. It's not all black and white within our earth. And we also have the spiritual realms. We have Shambhala, the spiritual dimensions of our earth. And I say this a lot to people, we don't need to go anywhere geographically. Everything is here dimensionally. And, as in ancient, in ancient times in Egyptian, we know we go on the solar barge. We know we have to go through the inner realms to get back to the stars. Same with Aboriginal lore, Lore. Same with American Indian. You go on the starry canoe. Same with Maori tradition. You go in to get out back to the stars. So this is a very safe way of passage to get. Everybody's looking up, but
Yes.
the more we can connect in with our earth, that's why we're here. We're here to anchor in deeply, anchor and alchemize. And yeah, why stop at just ourselves? Anchor and alchemize for all beings residing within and on the surface of the earth through source code, our true self. And this is very much what I'm passing and sharing with others,
Yes.
this information about, and
Yes. The
protocols and
same, the
processes for
same.
that. I know you are. I know. And I
It
know
fills my heart to hear you speak of it. Thank you.
exactly, because this is it, you know. I mean, if you're in the benefit, if you're in the underworld without the benefit of self, you can be taken on a merry jig all around the universe, and you know the trapping mechanisms within lower astral 4D and all the rest of it. But if you're in those realms with the benefit of your true self and source code, it's a whole nother story.
Yeah. Yeah, I was preparing the slides yesterday for the course that I'm starting, the interstellar communication. Exactly what you say, it is about the frequency of your being. I call it the harmonic of your being.
I love that.
Um, yeah, and I hadn't realized that in I guess the harmonic series, or through music, there is a fundamental note, and then out of that fundamental note, all of the other octaves.
The octaves. That's why I call it octavating as
Yeah,
we go
I
up the
got I
spiral.
got shivers because I
And
really, just by creating that slide, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the fundamental note.
exactly, octavating, and you're just going up the octaves, the octaves, the octaves. And we know within Egyptian that the time is spiralic, galactic time is spiralic, spirals up, and it spirals down. This is a descension process as much as it is an ascension process, and we're bringing the manna from heaven to the earth, and we're bringing the dimensional aspects of self consciously to work with this, so that we can, get the job done on all these different layers that are required here now, bringing it down to the earth and sending it back up, and letting all our stellar brethren know that we're back online, and we're ready to work together. So this is a switching on of our stellar GPS, and also our, what I call our galactic transponders. When like if you're in a small airplane, I've flown private planes, and you switch on the transponder, and you're communicating with the tower. Then you know where each other are, and you're able to get a read on each other, and be in vibrational communication through that radio frequency. And so I use that analogy. It's the same, and that's what this hydroplasma is doing. It's helping us to stay assimilated and absorb with the frequencies, and keep our transponders on, and our galactic and cosmic GPSs, so that we can be in constant communication with the frequencies of the plasma, the solar plasma and the hydroplasma, working in with each other. There are so many different types of plasma, and we're learning to work with it consciously again, which is so exciting. It's
Yes.
incredible. These plasma fields that we're swimming in now. We're swimming in. We're not cut off from it anymore. And that's because a lot of freeing up has been happening within lower astral realms. That
Mm.
that sealing, or that blocking off of energies for us to reconnect, is now in free flow again, which is incredible. And so, yeah, more the merrier, I say.
Thank you so much. I wanted to ask you about the dragons. I know you are so connected and in tune. Would you share anything with us?
Yeah, well, the dragons have been emancipated through different places. Where I was talking about, where there's certain tunnel systems and certain dimensional aspects of tunnel systems that had them trapped here. And part of it was in a malevolent sense, and part of it was in a shutting off of the grids and the consciousness. And a lot of the dragons have been freed up through our remembering, walking the land and remembering ourselves. And through that, we're reanimating the landscapes. So not just dragons, but giants as well. The landscapes are all coming, they're reanimating through us. In other words, we're moving up into the mythical realms. So the higher 4D realms, not the lower, but the higher 4D realms, that we're moving into more mythical realms and being more aware of them, and we're reanimating them through us coming back into that awareness and that consciousness. So the landscapes that, you know, would look like, you know, hills and valleys and all the rest are starting to look like dragons and giants that are waking up within the landscape and communicating with us now. So that's been incredible. In terms of the star mirror connections and the star clocks, there's been a big emancipation on Draco, the purity of Draco through the originator gates here on the earth, and that is because of an opening that has been allowed to occur, that has not occurred for many, many, many millennia, and that is a connection between Lyra, Vega, the brightest star in Lyra, and Venus through that double V gateway, connecting in with Draco. And the mother dragon on Thuban has received her eyesight back. So that has opened up the third eye. And a lot of the pineal portals, the third eye pineal gland portals around the earth that are reactivating through ancient temple complexes and pyramids such as Angkor Wat, have emancipated the mother dragon on Thuban, and she's gained her eyesight back. And this has created an incredible connection now to certain dragon portals on our planet back to their original pure connection with their mother dragon. So that's been like a delight. And there's more emancipation happening. And it's many are working with dragons now and feeling this calling. And again, I say more the merrier. There are a lot of golden eggs that are being incubated now. There are dragon houses, Dracospita, that are activating now, and the plasma pearls are like the membrane that allows the dragon eggs to not abort mission. So it's like, so they don't misconceive of themselves. So this plasma pearls are like the membrane substance around the eggs as they're incubating, which is an extra protective mechanisms. And the other beautiful thing that's been happening too is that since the mother dragon on Thuban has been reconnected to the originator gates in its purity, not through the hijacking of those galactic gateways through certain beings. What's happening now is the female dragons have felt safe to mate again with male dragons. So they're entering into a beautiful Hieros Gamos sacred mating ritual that is now bringing forth the female dragon lineages again. Because what's been happening for a long time is that the female dragons have not been felt safe to mate with the male dragons because they have been heavily manipulated and trapped for a long time, and therefore the females have not wanted to, so they've been bringing through the eggs themselves. Female dragons, and even on the physical, the Komodo dragons, they can bring through the eggs themselves without having to mate with a male. And this is like a survival of the species. And so what happens is, now that the female dragons have been able to feel safe again, that they're able to produce females. And the male dragons are being emancipated from lower astral 4D. So they're all moving back into the purity of what they can work with. And this is greatly influencing the telluric realms, the dragon nodes, and the dragon lines all around the planet, which is, I'm so happy. And also the dragons are, they are working with their epigenetics so as not to, when you work with the epigenetics, and we have this capacity too, we can work with our hybrid self. So we can work with other dimensional aspects of self, known, as dragon mothers, or mer beings, or we can work with the galactics as well. And the dragons in under the Vatican, I was working with the dragons recently, and they were coming up as, well, there was one that came up and stayed with me for quite some time, and it was a dragon, a peacock dragon, and it was sublime. It was so beautiful. But this is through epigenetics, because it doesn't interfere with our DNA coding, but through epigenetics we can work with our biology, and we can work with our environment to influence how we can work with nature through these changing of through the dragons are doing it a lot through hybrid species of dragons. They're working with the nature and shifting up the nature in ways that are phenomenal, but without interfering with the original coding of their DNA and the expansiveness of their DNA. And yes, humans have this capacity with epigenetics as well. And so I've been exploring that a lot lately with different dragon hybrid species, and also within my own capacity to work with my body, but without interference of my original coding of DNA.
That's fascinating. I'd love to know more about that. I know we don't have a lot of time now, but I'd love to know more about that. That's so important.
It's new for me. It's new for me just in the last, few months since returning from the global travels. So this started to come through. And there are other sisters working with this as well, beautiful sisters that are, working with the dragons, with this epigenetics. And yeah, it's an invitation for us to, because, when we work with the dimensions, we don't just go like in a geographical sense. We work with dimensional aspects of self. And we know within our dimensional aspects of self that we have different forms, and we have different capacities, and we have different roles, and we have different identities. And so it's an expansion of who we are here, but how we can consciously work with that. Of course, we are source code, and we are source directed, but these are dimensional aspects of self, and this is part of the epigenetics, is how we can go in and do the work through those aspects, dimensional aspects of self, and bring them in to union with who we are in our capacity as Raeline and Anouk Sophia, how we can work with this in a greater capacity of expansion, and what I call expanded consciousness or spherical consciousness. And so this is something is really wonderful to play with and work with, this divine curiosity that we have through the inner child. It's the inner child that opens the gate it has the key that opens the door to the wise one within and all these dimensional facets of self. And so consciously, I work with 6 different streams of consciousness when I'm doing the work, and one might step forward and they 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 can do the job better than I can in my state of consciousness and capacity with my elemental and molecular makeup in a 3 to 5D sense. So this is I'm inviting everyone to play with this now, and get to explore this for yourself and use that beautiful, divine, childlike awe and wonder and the curiosity with our dimensionality.
Wonderful. Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for all that you
Thank you.
share. I'm excited for what is coming and beyond grateful to you and for all that you've already unfolded and weaved through the planet, through all the cosmos, really, because I know we're all multidimensional beings. Thank you so much. Is
My
there
absolute
anything?
pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Is there anything else that you want to share? A lot of the people coming to me are asking me how do we connect? I think there is a real deep sense of, yes, this is the truth. We must return to this self, the true being, the harmonics of original essence.
Yes.
Um,
And we have a mind gate for our planet, and there were locks placed over the mind gate. And not all of the places and the locks placed on the planet were malevolent or malware. They were also there to protect the earth when the consciousness fell. And of course, these gateways didn't shut down completely. They've still been flowing, but with a minimum aperture, but still
ha,
connected and their aperture is growing now. The more that the consciousness of each and every one of us is opening up, and our mother, we're going along for the ride with her birthing process, our beloved Gaia Galactica. And so, because we're made up of the same elements of her, it's only natural that this is
mhm,
occurring for us too. We've signed up for this. This is something that doesn't occur in other dimensions like we can do it here. And so there are many beings signing up now. And these originator gates and our original entry and exit gates that we've come in with, it's important to know these as well, get to know them and work with them. And this gives us greater stability with our anchoring and our alchemizing on the earth. And the mind gate, with the 12 dolphin dreaming temples that I was talking about earlier all around in the ocean, some of these places, it was agreed, the Council of 12, 12 is one. It was 13, but 12 is one being 13. And so with this, we all agreed that if anything happened, if the consciousness fell on the planet, if one of the temples became corrupted at the end times of Atlantis through, the sons of Balaam, then we would shut all of them would be shut down as a protective mechanism to this minimum aperture. And so those that are remembering themselves as we walk the land and swim in the sea, we put back the dismembered parts of self. And so when I went to Abu Simbel, it was the hill or the rock face behind it was one of these 12 dolphin dreaming temples and it was the one that was shut down originally. And then all of them had to float. It got tampered with at Lake Nasser,
uh,
that gateway. And
and it's
so,
interesting. It's interesting because the original place is actually underwater again.
exactly.
Amazing.
That's why I said Lake Nasser, because I knew you'd
Yeah.
understand. but there's a connection between that rock and what's in Lake Nasser.
Ah,
And that was when it went back to minimum aperture as a protective mechanism. And I'm delighted to say they're all opening up again. And part of my work since 2006 has been to work with these dolphin dreaming temples and reopen them up and get the aperture. Because what happened was all those beings that were involved with those temples, they had to shut down their own capacity and their own remembering, their own consciousness as a protective mechanism, because our coding, our DNA coding, was so intricately woven within the temple complexes. And so if the temple was shut down, our consciousness and DNA and aperture was shut down as well, to do with the galactic gateways and the portals of the earth. And so that's all opening up again. And so, yeah, for the last nearly 20 years, that's what I've been working with those via scuba mainly.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Not many people would take up scuba diving to do this work. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Delighted to have had this time with you. Thank you for all
Thank you.
and for what is unraveling. And I will add Raeline's information below of this video. If you like, do share with us if you have anything that you offer in terms of one-on-one services or.
Yeah, I'm mainly at the moment, because of the grid works takes up so much of my energy and time and the traveling, I mainly bring groups to sacred journeys to different places as called, as part of this mission work. And it can be very spontaneous. So they're not like things that are planned over a year or anything. It's like if you're getting the call to heed the journey, then just contact me as I share. I mainly share on Facebook. That's my main page. A little bit I'm starting to do more again on Instagram. And I do have Raeline Brady, no gap, Raeline Brady YouTube channel, which I'm starting to put more up on it as well. So they're the main things that I share, and the podcasts go on the YouTube as well and on my page.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And do you have what's your next journey, so that if people have the time to join you, is it quite soon?
Yeah, it's in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Excuse me.
So
In Bali.
okay, so reach out to Raeline if you have the time and you are feeling cold. I'm sure it's gonna be an amazing journey, and any other
Thank you.
journeys that you take, I'm sure I would be delighted to join you one day.
It
Thank
would
you
be
so much.
fantastic for us to do
Yeah.
something together.
Let's end this
Absolutely.
out. Thank you, my dear. I
Thank
am
you so much. And
honored to have this time with you. Much love, and thank you all for watching this.
thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Much love, much love.